Hour two of the show here on your Tuesday. Matt and Patrick here on a Mardi Gras day. I hope you're having a good one out there. Usually, last hour we mentioned that Brett is on vacation. Usually he records an interview with Patrick Cooligan at the Minnesota Reformer on Tuesdays, and we air that. Unfortunately, Brett is off enjoying some time off, and good for him. So it falls onto me, and this is going to be a treat here because joining me right now is Michelle Griffith. She is a writer over at the Minnesota Reformer, and she's covering the Capitol in St. Paul. She's kind enough today to talk about the beginning of session today and some of the stories she's been writing. Michelle, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. So first of all, I mean, I'll do Son of the Cross. It's Ash Wednesday tomorrow. I'll do Son of the Cross for you because I know you're a political reporter and this is just beginning. But it's not going to be as long. I mean, I shouldn't say off year. It's it's election year, but it's this second year of the legislative term. The session generally doesn't go as long as the first year of a term. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. And this year they don't have to pass a budget, and an off year is usually time for an infrastructure package and any policy bills that they want to do. And actually, Speaker Melissa Hortman yesterday said that, when she looks back at the 2024 session, she wants it to be described as short. So it seems like she wants to get things wrapped up and completed as soon as possible.
You have, in the agendas I see getting played out here. On one side, I think I see kind of the DFL coming in there and saying, basically, don't create any traps for yourself with the election year coming up here. You did a lot last year. Clean up some of these bills. Look at that infrastructure, the bonding bill. See if you can get that passed and try to prevent any major gaffes from happening. Is that a fair way to say how the DFL seems to be approaching this session?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at things. I do think, though, that they will look at some policy choices that they've been trying to get passed for years. So, you have the sanctuary state issue. It looks like that may be losing support now. A couple senators have said that they will not support the proposal, but it is one where Republicans are going to remind the Democrats that the House is up for re-election, and we will hold you to account to what you guys do today. It just seems that everyone is going to look at things through the November lens.
Well, and we'll start with, let's talk a little bit more about that issue. I think that issue is, that's a bit of a trap for the Democrats. And I'll say it like this, is that the Republicans have already written up the ad campaigns against that. I mean, as a matter of fact, you had the head of the Minnesota Republican Party already talking about, look what they're trying to do. I think that if you don't have the votes, I mean, if it's not a surefire way to do it, for you to bring it up and argue it and debate it and really push it, all you're doing is giving ammunition to your political opponents who are definitely trying to take back the House this next session. And so far, I'm not saying that the DFL has done a great job, of kind of keeping these issues at bay, but there's a lot of issues the Republicans have tried to make hay out of that somewhat have fallen by the wayside. And the fact that they're dealing with the SRO issue, the DFL is dealing with the SRO issue to try to get that off the table very quickly. It doesn't give a lot of things for the Republicans to use as political fodder. So when you look at the sanctuary state bill, do you think there's a substantial, I mean, is it close in your mind? Have you heard word if it's close to passing, or is it really still missing enough votes in the House and the Senate?
Well, Dina Winter here at the Reformer reported yesterday that, it appears the sanctuary state bill is dead on arrival. Speaker Hortman yesterday at a press conference after the floor session said that she doesn't believe there are the votes this year for the sanctuary state bill, and she just doesn't believe it's going to move forward in the House or the Senate. So it is one of those bills that, maybe doesn't have a long lifeline this year.
The SRO bill, I mean, it's that one seems to be on light speed. I mean, the DFL wants to get that one out of the way quick. I think it's already been introduced, hasn't it? The fixes that they want to do have already been introduced.
Yeah, yep. It's already been introduced. It's going through its second committee hearing today, and then tomorrow it'll be in Ways and Means, which is usually the last committee stop before it goes to the floor. So, I mean, the House could be voting on it as soon as this week. And yesterday, Governor Walz said that he expects the SRO fix to be one of the first bills on his desk, ready to sign. So it looks like lawmakers are wanting to move quickly on that.
Are there any other bills that the DFL are looking at light speeding through and trying to get those done earlier than later?
Yeah, there is a tax fix. So last year in their tax bill, there was oversight that if they don't fix it, over 2 years could cost Minnesota taxpayers $352 million. So they're just trying to get that done as soon as possible. That's already had a couple hearings as well. And, that's one where, that's one where it seems Democrats are trying to get that through quickly so it doesn't become an election issue as well.
The bonding bill, well, that's the big beast. That's the big beast. You do need to have in both the House and the Senate Republican votes along with it. It generally in the minority party creates some level of friction because the majority party has a tendency of looking, kind of hand selecting a few senators or House reps that they know that need something, making sure that's in the bill and making it much tougher for that Republican to vote against it. What is the sense that you have right now hearing from the Republicans and the Democrats? Do you feel as if there's going to get one passed or, I'll bring up in 2022, the Republicans walked away from a deal and desperately wish that they could get that one back. I don't know if they've learned that lesson. Do you take the deal that's on the table if you can get a deal now because there's no guarantee you're going to have the House come after November?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so both sides have said that bonding bill is a priority for them this year. They want funding for critical works like water, roads, bridges, nuts and bolts. And I talked to I talked to Senate Minority Leader Mark Johnson last week, and he said that Republicans are ready to use the leverage that they have to influence the bonding bill. So last year, the Republicans were successfully able to leverage their votes to get $300 million in nursing home funding. Mm-hmm. That was something last year that they were advocating for all session. And, in the final days, Democrats finally folded and, they were able to get the votes for the bonding bill. So Senator Johnson said that he is prepared to do the same this year. And this year, he doesn't want to see any what he calls pet projects in the bonding bill. So last year, Republicans were not happy with the amount of nonprofit funding that was in the bonding bill. And so Johnson, said this year he does not want to see funding to nonprofits or interest groups. He wants, kind of the nuts and bolts of what is typically in a bonding bill.
One thing, though, that is in a lot of the Republican districts that they need is the water treatment issue. I mean, we have nitrates in the mm-hmm. waters that, and just frankly, the water treatment facilities we have can't take the stuff out. We need to get these upgraded. In some places in red districts, they actually need to re-drill wells for the city to get new water because the wells have been going dry. Obviously, is that, I think of all the issues that might be facing the Republicans, those might be the ones at the top of the list. Has there been any discussion on that? Have you heard?
I have not heard specifically about the, water facilities, but I do know that Republicans in the bonding bill, they want an even distribution of projects. So they don't want just a cluster of projects being funded in the Twin Cities. They want funding for their districts, obviously. So they're going to try to advocate for a bill that evenly funds projects across the state and, gets their constituents what they need and, tries to do that in kind of a facilitated, streamlined way.
Okay, and I'm going to bring up the obvious here. It's not going to be a 50-50 bill, though. That's generally the case. If they are basically of the mindset is that we have to have the same equal amount of money spent in our districts as your districts, I don't think the Democrats, the DFL, wants to make it look like they have caved to the Republicans in an election year, I don't think it's going to get done. I mean, they do understand that they're going to have to, the bulk of this goes with the majority in the same sense as when the Republicans have been in charge in a long while back, but they would get the majority of the projects in their districts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, it likely won't be 50-50, but, we don't really know exactly yet. The governor has proposed his bonding package, and we haven't seen the legislatures yet. So we don't have a good idea exactly of what projects they're looking at, but, the Republicans say that they're ready to, they basically left it open-ended in that we're willing to use our bonding votes to leverage whatever issue will come up towards the end of the session. So, Speaker Johnson was asked, I'm sorry, not Speaker Johnson, but Minority Leader Johnson was asked, for the bonding bill leverage, is there an issue specifically that you're looking to gain favor on? And he just kind of left it open-ended and said, we'll see how it goes, but that's something we will definitely use this year.
Did they mention anything? Did either the minority or the majority in the House or the Senate talk about Walz's proposals yet? Has there been any formal announcement on what they agree with, disagree with?
No, not on the bonding bill. They are pretty close to the governor's proposal, and the governor's proposal this year has very little cash in it. So a lot of the funding will be through borrowed bonds. And last year there was, a bonding bill funded with, general obligation bonds and a all cash bill. So it looks like this year it'll be a majority borrowing through obligation bonds bill. But no, as of right now, we don't really know what they're looking at.
Joining us right now, once again, talking about the launch of the new session, Michelle Griffith from the Minnesota Reformer. You were there, speaking of issues that sometimes can pop up, you were there on day one. Your article, ERA, Mardi Gras, and Apple Blondies, that was it was day one at the session. You do get these issues, these people who are very passionate show up and really push for an issue to be brought up. I know the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, that's one that's been pushed for a long time. Do you feel as if there's anything that might be kind of a little bit out of left field, maybe that's, could end up becoming an issue that is brought to the floor?
The one thing that comes to mind is Representative Lee Finke yesterday introduced a bill to ban the sale and transfers of automatic rifles such as AK-47s and AK-15s. And the Minnesota Gun Caucus has, come out strongly against it. And it appears like yesterday, Moms Demand Action was one of the groups who were at the Capitol, advocating for this. So it seems like that one is one that could really get people fired up and passionate. I did ask Walz yesterday whether he would support an automatic rifle ban, and he said he would need to look at the language, but he doesn't want to see these military style rifles in schools. He even said he doesn't want to see it in the Capitol building. He has advocated for smart, safe gun regulations. So it's something that he could be looking at, but he said he will need to look at the language first.
You as well, one other last story I want to bring up that you covered, which was the basically the governor and the House and Senate leaders at the Chamber of Commerce event that they had. I believe this was over in St. Paul. And it's interesting because you did get they did get some answers there on some of these issues. Sports betting passing this year. It seems like that might go through, although, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time it didn't go through because basically the DFL wanted it to be in Native American casinos only, and the Republicans were insisting, no, it has to be over at Canterbury and Running Aces as well. Have you heard of any conversations that have happened on that level?
Yeah, so Senator Jeremy Miller in the Senate has proposed his own sports betting bill, And that bill would give exclusive licenses to the 11 tribal nations in the state. But it also would provide some tax revenue from the bets that would go straight to the horse racing tracks. And that's something that's probably not going to, go through as the process gets going, just because, DFL is very aligned with the Native American tribes, and, funding for the horse racing tracks is not something that they are in favor of. And we're told that Senator Matt Klein is proposing his own proposal for sports betting that also, gives control to the tribal nations. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but it seems like both. Like they said they are working bipartisanly to try to get something through, just because it is something that a lot of Minnesotans do want. In my story yesterday, I wrote that majority of the leaders said that, what are the odds of sports betting passing this year? It's about 50-50, but Speaker Hortman did say it's 60-40 in favor. So it seems like she has maybe bumped up her percentage, because last week she said maybe 50-50 it would pass. So maybe she's seeing some hope on the horizon in terms of sports betting. But no, it should be interesting to see how that furthers along as the session goes.
For those hoping that from this chamber event, those hoping that we'd become more like Wisconsin and have beer sales in convenience store and grocery stores, all four of them very quickly said, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah. So that one's definitely off the table.
Yep.
Then you have this, the point, when you look back at the 2024 session, how do you want it to be described? Repairing the damage from last year. That's the Minority Leader Johnson bringing that up, the Senate Minority Leader. That doesn't sound like, it sounds like there's much more of angst there. Now, obviously, there is a political aspect. You can't remove the political aspect of this. And they're looking at 2024, and they're looking at the election coming up here. And what they don't want is to appoint a quiet session, because they want issues to be able to run on. But, I'm not sure I'm seeing necessarily anything there. And we've talked about some of the things, the child tax credit, the school lunch things. These are wildly popular bills. So saying you're going to repair the damage from last year, I don't know. Obviously, you're going to cherry pick what you're going to do. But if the DFL is already addressing some of those mistakes, the tax issue and the SRO issue, do you think there's a lot that they're going to go back on? I don't sense, at least I don't sense. You're there every day. Do you sense that there's enough regret from the DFL on any of those issues from last year that they might actually overturn one of them?
No, I don't get that sense at the Capitol.
Okay.
DFL lawmakers are very proud of what they did last year. They did make a couple mistakes, which they said are going to be resolved very quickly here in the coming days. But, I've heard that they're planning just to build on what they started last year. So, in terms of maybe keeping things more reserved with the election coming up, it doesn't appear that that's something the DFL wants to do. It looks like they're going to continue with their progressive priorities. And, I don't see them looking at things they passed last year again.
I'm going to bring up one thing, and this is, Carrie Dietzich was the Senate Majority Leader. She had to step down because her cancer has returned. All my best to her and her family. And Aaron Murphy has taken over as the new Senate Majority Leader. Obviously, with a one-vote majority in the Senate, whether or not people think it's appropriate, we have to ask the question: is there a concern that Carrie will be able to get through the rest of this session?
Senator Murphy was asked about that. She wasn't there yesterday when on the first day of session. Her desk was empty. But, Senator Murphy basically said that's a private issue and something she couldn't talk about. But the Senate does have remote voting, practices in place. So if there were to be consequential vote on something, Senator Dietzich could vote remotely. She did that last year when she was getting a lot of her cancer treatments. So, she was voting from the hospital bed, I was told. So, and I was also told that the doctors told her, like, please stop working. She's such a workhorse that she couldn't stop. So, I think Dietzich is going to try her hardest to be there and show up for her caucus. But, there are mechanisms in place that she can use to vote remotely. But, it is a concern, that she might not be there, on the ground. But, obviously she did this last year. I mean, she was getting treatment and being the Senate majority leader. So she has experience on this, and I think her caucus is supporting her, and they're going to do what they can to make sure that she's representing her folks the best that she can and is doing the work.
And I'm glad they're doing it. And glad it's not like the federal government where they wheeled the one guy in with a hospital gurney on, the hospital clothes on, in a wheelchair to make the vote. It's good that we do have some options there. All right, Michelle. All my best. If I know you. I know many of the other people that do the cover the Minnesota legislature. I know the next few weeks, next few months are going to be really busy. I can't tell you how much I really appreciate the time. I appreciate as well the great stories in the Minnesota Reformer, and I want to drive everyone to go get your Minnesota legislature coverage over at the Minnesota Reformer. They got Dina and yourself over there covering it, and I don't think you could ask for better coverage, frankly. So I thank you very much. I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great.